Good morning, everyone. This is Michelle, live from Watergirl Quilt Co, sitting here in our education center with our lovely Pride Month display that Faith created that's behind us, with a beautiful courthouse color plate quilt that Kathy made during Krista Henneberry's workshop, and it's beautiful in the colors of the rainbow. Hi Maureen, good morning. Good morning, Paul. Nice to see all of you. We're gonna let a few more people join us here, and then I'm going to invite Paul to come on our video. Hi Pat. So this morning, well, today is June 30th. It's the last day of Pride Month. But inclusion and living authentically are something that we like to try to honor every day at Watergirl. But we're taking an opportunity to focus on it this morning. And tomorrow is Canada Day, so we would like to wish you a happy Canada Day. We recognize that this year things are a little different for us at Canada Day this year. We've had some very sad discoveries in our Indian residential school, the former sites. And there's a lot of pain in our country right now, and there are also people who have things to feel proud about too. So however you are choosing to spend your day tomorrow, we wish you well, and we hope that you find time with friends and family, or you're quilting something that helps you smile and feel better, and enjoy that. So this morning I'm going to patch in Paul. I'm going to invite us to join us right now. There we go. You're going to see the screen split, and Paul will appear, and then I'll introduce him for those of you who have not met Paul Leger yet. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. I love that quilt on the wall behind you. I don't think I've seen that one before.
It's a work in progress. Finished the top yesterday, actually.
Oh, very nice. Well, we're going to look forward to hearing more about that. So today we're here to talk about male quilters, some stereotypes, learn more about Paul. There's been some excellent discussion going on our website that we have all had different experiences in our lives, and it's just going to be me and Paul talking about ours today. So I'm really excited that I get to interview Paul, and in preparation for this, I watched his interview about male quilters that he did with Nancy Zeman on Sewing with Nancy for public television. And I just want to say that, first of all, I love Nancy, and I watched a replay of documentary about her recently on PBS. It's a 1 or 2 hour show, I can't remember, but Nancy had Bell's palsy as a child, and so she had, you know, her face, she had, I guess that drooping, I don't know the correct medical word to describe it, but she felt self-conscious all of her life because of her appearance. And watching her interview really resonated with me, because she felt like she couldn't be on screen or out there in front of people teaching because of what she felt was a facial deformity of sorts. And I guess as a person who has a neurological disorder that causes uncontrollable movements in my body, I really connect with Nancy and admired her, that it's not about our appearance, it's not about who our partner is in life, it's about living authentically. So with that, I would love to introduce you to our guest today at Watergirl Quilt Co, Paul Leger. If you have not met Paul before, Paul retired after 38 years working for Canada. He was a public servant for 16 years. He served in our Canadian Armed Forces for 22 years. And Paul, I believe you started quilting about 30 years ago while you were stationed in Victoria. Were you in the Navy then?
Actually, I was serving on ship. It was my second ship, two. One's bad enough, but I had to do two ships. Yeah, I just been transferred back from Colorado. I know it was a hard thing to take, but while I was there, love my mother. She had encouraged me to buy a sewing machine for emergencies, literally. because her attitude and my grandmother's attitude is the house was not complete unless it had a sewing machine in the house. So anyway, I bought the machine. A year after I'm in Victoria, I said, why not make quilts with old clothing? And here I am 31 years later, being interviewed by Great Michelle.
Well, thank you. Well, that's wonderful. And I like your mom's philosophy because, yeah, every house should have a sewing machine. Look at the people who were really grateful when COVID hit that they had one and they dusted it off, right? To make masks. And then many of them have become quilters. So, Paul, when you started to quilt and you were telling your friends, family, colleagues that, hey, I'm making quilts now, what did they think about your new hobby?
One thing is, when I started quilting, for whatever reason, although at the time it was, say, a female-dominated craft, passion, but for whatever reason, it never stopped me from talking about it. I think for the same reason it never stopped the lady saying, I'm a mechanic. It's like, let's be out there. So from day one, I never hid the fact. And I would say all in all, like my mother was happy I was sewing, and she was more than happy to give me all the tips she could over the phone, living in Victoria and her in Moncton. And I would go to quilt stores, not even knowing there were quilt stores or fabric stores. And I would ask questions. And this is what I need. Is this really good? I remember my first rotary cutters, like, is this a new tool that's going to be dead in 2 years? Or is it? So I was asking questions. So it was well received. And I must say there was one person, and it was not ill received. It was my boss on the ship. We had just come back from being out at sea. He didn't have his car there, and he lived a bit further than where I did, but I offered him, here, I'll give you a ride home. It's only 1 or 2 kilometers. So he said, sure. He said, but I'd like to stop at your house. I want to see your house. I'm there, okay. So we stopped. I showed him the house. He wanted to see my woodworking tools and my camera equipment. But as we're doing the tour, on the dining room table, there's a sewing machine and fabric. He doesn't say a word, not a word. The next morning at work, I have to go see him. And he's there, I got to ask you a question. I'm there, okay. He's there, yesterday. And as soon as he said yesterday, I knew where he was going. It was, you have woodworking tools, you do camera work, you have a computer. He's there, and you sew. He's there, I don't get it. I'm there, they all have their similarities. I'm there, woodworking, camera, and computer, you all need your hands and your eyes. And as soon as he heard that, he said, oh, it's interesting. And to this day, we're still friends, me, him, and his wife, and the 3 boys call me Uncle Paul. They have one of my quilts on their bed. So it was, I think it was more rational. It was not in his case, it was more, what's the rational? More so
Right.
than you could be doing it.
He wanted to just understand why it would be of interest to you. Probably, as you said, it was a very female-dominated hobby,
Yeah.
so he probably didn't understand your interest.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Excellent. Were there any other quilters in your family? Like your mom wanted you all to have sewing machines, but were there other avid quilters in your family, Paul?
My grandmother was a quilter. Every time I went to visit her, there was always a quilt on a frame to be quilted, but we never talked about it. There was my aunt Beatrice. She was a quilter. As long as I can remember, we always had quilts, not one, but 2 or 3 quilts on our bed at all times. But I only found out after that Mom kind of retired that she was also a quilter. And to this day, she'll be 92 in 2 months. And yeah, last night I was talking to her, and she's there. Yeah, those colors that I like for that quilt I'm working on they're going well. So she's still doing it. And I do have one of her first quilts that she made when she was about 16 years old in 1945. I have that in my possession. So yeah.
Oh, wonderful. You'll treasure that. What
yes.
about men? Did any of the men in your family sew?
Not at the time. Not at the time. Again, I never hid the fact that I started quilting, or it's sewing, but for me it was quilting. Not for me. There's distinct between sewing and quilting.
Yes.
My Uncle George, my Aunt Beatrice's husband, a few years after I was quilting, I was visiting, and he admitted that he was cutting the fabric for my aunt because he had been injured many years ago, and his injuries came back to haunt him, so he was at home bored. So I think this was just to do something. Fast forward a couple of visits later, he admits that he's now sewing the fabrics together. But you could tell he was not comfortable admitting this. He was not comfortable. Today, maybe not today, but as there's a couple of years ago, the whole people in Shediac, New Brunswick, if you needed a quilt top done, you call George. He would do it for you. If you have scraps, give them to George. He'll use them. So oh yeah. So he yeah. So now I'd say we're two men in the family that now quilts. Yeah.
Do you have any idea why he kind of kept this so quiet in his, early days?
I never asked him, but I would say it was the fact that even today there's a lot of men that have that stigma. It's not for a man, it's for a woman. Which we both know, and many of us know, it's not a fact. It's now anybody's hobby.
Yes. Well, we have a very small number of our crew who are male at Watergirl Quilt Co. That we know of, right? Because there's the other thing. Yes. We have people who place online orders and use an initial for their first name. That's their choice for whatever privacy, right? We don't know their gender. Mm. Their gender doesn't matter to us. What matters is we love that they're quilting, right? And that they chose us to shop with. But it's interesting because we learned something as a staff once last fall when a very, a young man, I'd say maybe 30, came in and was looking around the shop, and we asked, could we help him? And he was there to pick up a curbside pickup for his mother, and told her name. So we're like, wonderful. We got her package, and then we thanked him, and we're ready to walk him to the door and sanitize and all those things. And that's when he was like, well, I think I'll just look around. And it didn't dawn on us to ask him, are you a quilter too? Right. Mm-hmm. And it really made us realize, like, there were men who come into the store to quilt, and we know because the moment they've come in the door, I'm looking for this or this for my project, right? But so that was an interesting and eye-opening experience for us and our staff, that whoever walks through our door, we need to make the assumption they're there because they want to learn something about quilting. Yeah. And that should only be our only assumption.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. But but at least you've always had a very welcoming store. Even when we knew each other, but even if I go into your store and you weren't there, your staff have always been very, very cool and very welcoming. I mean, it's not like, oh, you're a man, what do you want? What do you need? It's like, hi, it's not, hi, Paul. Hey, can we help you in any ways? With a smile and a sincerity in their voice, which is good.
We want to try to do that. That's for sure. So when I started quilting, I was kind of like yourself. Like, my mom didn't quilt, but I was inspired by my grandmother. And I was 18 years old when I formally decided it was time to learn to quilt. And I took this 3-month evening class with a great local teacher in Brockville, Jean Boyd. And at that time I was 18. So here's a different kind of stereotype, right? I had finished high school a semester early so that I could work as many hours as possible, save money for university. But I wanted to do something for me, just for me to create, right? And others would say to me, why are you quilting? Like, get your grandmother to give you a quilt, like old ladies quilt, right? So that was, I think, our first step in breaking down stereotypes, was moving beyond that quilting is for old retired ladies, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's not. It's for everyone. I have children who quilt that I've taught to quilt, and they still sew, right? So do you think there's any misconceptions out there then? We've touched on it a bit, but any misconceptions you've encountered about male quilters?
The misconceptions, yay or nay, they're getting less and less. I know years ago it was a big thing where, yes, I would walk into a quilt store, or many men would walk into a quilt store, and are you shopping for your wife? Are you waiting for your wife? Mm-hmm. If I would go in with a friend, a female friend, it was like, oh, it's so nice that you're following your wife around. So I must say I did have a couple of those experiences, but only a couple. I've been fortunate. Most quilt stores that I've been into have been more than welcoming. I've been where I think I was politely and not questioned on entry into a store, just to make just to, and as soon as they knew I was there as a shopper, as a quilter, it was like, well, we're probably like opening their arms, not because welcome, it's more or less sales. But I think a lot of those misconceptions are out there. Unfortunately for the men that are out there, there's still a lot of men that are in the proverbial quilting closet. They're still afraid of the stigma of a male quilter is not supposed to be quilting. It's supposed to be, it's a ladies' hobby, not a man. So there's still, I'm still meeting the odd one out there that as soon as they see another male quilter, is like, oh, they like it. They're appreciative. And it's like, and I will make sure to let them know here in Canada, there's the Canadian Male Quilter Facebook page. It's just for male quilters. There's also many other male quilting Facebook pages. One has over 2,500 members from around the world. Men That Quilt, I believe it's called, or Man Quilter, I forget. But yeah, so, but I think those are the misconceptions. Is there's still the odd person says men should not necessarily quilt, and the male, on the same token, male, I don't think they should be quilting. Another misconception that I've heard, more so for coming from the lady side of things, is we had, as male, we had it easier as quilters. In some ways, I do have to agree, because we are still somewhat of a novelty. So because we're a novelty, if you want to call us that, is they're interested in finding out more about us, and they want us in their groups, which is good, which is really good, because it gives exposures to more men. Mm-hmm. But on the same token, I've read comments lately where I had it easier because I'm a man. I'll get asked to do trunk shows. And this was not me personally, it's just men as general. We get more opportunities because we're men quilter. And we've actually had a few discussions, being friends, about this. And yes, we agree that it might have opened doors because we are males. Yes, we don't deny it. But once the door is open, we're no different than anybody else. If I don't have quilting skills, I'm not going to be asked to do a workshop, or he's not going to be asked to do a trunk show. So we work just as hard, and in some cases maybe even harder, than maybe other quilters. Because we want to be, yes, if we want to be out there, we're going to work. And you know me, Michelle, I will work. I do it because I like to, but because I have something to show. So I would say those are my point of view, what I've seen for that word that you use. I forget it already.
Thank you, Paul. Well, you comment on some things. Some of them have actually surprised me on what you've said, and some of them haven't. And so I guess back to the tagline I used in this video when I was talking about "Are male quilters gay?" And I realized afterwards that I didn't communicate that tagline in the way I intended to completely. And I apologize for anyone I upset. There was comments that we shouldn't have to talk about this. And I agree, because in a perfect world, we should just all accept each other and not have to talk about any of these things, right? But, you talked about, well, one thing that hit me was like, are you there with your wife? That's a whole other topic about how would you feel when someone says that to you as a gay man. The other thing that struck me is, over the years, and and this hasn't happened as much recently, but I've been places, where, say at a party, okay, so yeah, we haven't been to those, where, there's just people you're acquainted with or you've met. And I'm disappointed to say, I have heard comments like, I'll be talking about what I do, first of all, that I quilt, and that back then I hope to open a quilt shop, and it's amazing how many people are quilting, and it came up. I always throw it out there, even lots of men quilt now. And sadly, I have heard some men who have no understanding of this say, like, are they good at that? Oh, I hate to say this, Paula, but they must be gay. They're so good at working with all that color and things. And those things pain me to hear those stereotypes. And it seems to happen a lot, I notice, in artistic things. So like, I'm really grateful that you're here talking to us because, you know, you're a gay man. You've been in the military, which we've all read about those things in the news as well, and the issues there. So how does it make you feel just in general when someone says to you, like, you got it easier because you're a man, or, you know, assumes that your female friend you're with is your wife? I'm just curious if you feel okay sharing that with us.
How do I feel when it happens? I don't want to say I don't snap back, but I can have a very sharp tongue if I need to. And I've used it. I try, I don't go ballistic, I don't, but it's, the person won't do the mistake again. Yeah. And on the same way, I try to do it in a way to educate, although I'm not happy when it happens, especially now that we're in 2021. Yeah, 2021, exactly. So I can't, I don't ignore it. I don't ignore it. I will make a comment. It's costs stores and businesses sales, because if that's the attitude they want to have, they want to be so close-minded, I will walk out, and I have. And I have. On the same token, most times when I've heard these comments, though, it has been from a customer, not from the store or an employee. So when it's a customer, I will not punish the store. And a lot of times the stores have come to my defense, not that I need defense. To your point about us being gay, yes, we are, the majority of us are. But Scott's a doctor, married, children. Jeff, married, children, dating heavily. Good Lord, Joe, a famous Canadian Quilter, Joe Cunningham, very heterosexual, not in a bad way. So there's a lot of us on there. And I do host 2 men's retreat a year in Vermont. And we do have coming to the retreat, gay, heterosexual, bisexual. We even have a transgender. So we have all type of personalities coming. And something I want to say about the people coming is, by coincidence, a great coincidence, I was in the Canadian Armed Forces. Randy was in the U.S. Navy. Andre was in the U.S. Navy. Mike, I don't know what Mike was in. Oh, and I'm forgetting one more. There's another gentleman that shows up. There's 5 of us out of about 15 to 20 that were ex-service members that are all quilters. They're all quilters. So it's good.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
And it just goes to prove to you that everyone is creative and quilters are everywhere. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, we are.
And, you know, it's unfortunate when you have those experiences, but I'm really pleased that we're here today with our crew. We have had 53 viewers watching this whole time, and really thank them. And I know there'll be more in the replays, because it's important we talk about things that have caused people pain in life and to not ignore it, because we need to learn from our past experiences to improve our future, right? That's my feeling. We're all human beings. We won't be perfect, but we can try to be better by understanding each other, right? So this male quilting group, you've told us a little bit about what I'll call their demographics, okay? Yeah. But tell me about them. What's it like hanging out with male quilters? And Paul, I can ask you this because I know you've taught a lot of classes, I've been in them, where there's only been female quilters. So you have the excellent position to compare. What's it like hanging out in a group of male quilters compared to female quilters? And here I don't mean to start a stereotype, but are there similarities and are there differences?
I'd say they are similarities. We're all there for one thing, and as we'll be boisterous and we're quiet, same as both groups that we're at. The couple of things that I've been told by, like, we meet at an inn in Vermont, and the owners of the inn, they would host a lot of retreats. And I would a couple of times ask them, what's the big difference between men and female retreats? And they said, men typically would ask for things. Like, could we get more iced tea? And then I've been told, I don't know I can't see this as being how constant, but we're out of iced tea. And, you know,
Oh dear.
they're little things, but we've been told we're quieter than female groups overall. Joking wise, again, going by hosts, retreat hosts, our jokes can be just as bad or as good. So I would say there's probably, at the end of the day, we're probably pretty much the same. We like a good laugh. We enjoy a good beer or a glass of wine as we're working. And yeah, we're just there to quilt. We're all there to quilt, and we share as much as we can, and so on and so forth.
Does anybody ever, you know, swear like a sailor occasionally when they're ripping out stitches? Because there's been some women who have shocked me at my female quilter retreats. How about you guys?
I'm thinking about it, and I'm sure it's happened. Oh, I'm sure it did. I'm sure. I mean, maybe not on a tirade, but you know.
That's my attempt at humor, just to point out.
Ron sitting next to me and figure out that he thought his bobbin was empty, and he had been sewn for a while to find out his bobbin was there, but he had never threaded the machine. So he used a couple of small, quick choice words. But I'd say we probably do. Yeah, we probably use colorful wordings for our whatever you want to call it, our oopses. Yeah.
So I mean, you know, because it all comes down to like creating a quilt is a passionate thing, right? You really throw yourself into it. Whether you're quilters, you're a quilter, and you throw yourself into it, right? For sure. So I guess my last question, well, statement / question. So for example, the men who I do know that come into our store to shop in person, one guy, I just love it. Every time he leaves, his comment is, my wife's going to kill me when she sees the Visa bill. Every time I come here, I spend too much. And you know, that's funny because he told me that his wife asked him to set up a separate email account because they had shared one for their home, their family. And she was tired of seeing all that silly quilting stuff, you know? So when he shares those comments with me, I feel that is very refreshing because it shows a movement forward, right? I mean, his wife is making those comments and stuff, but she doesn't stop him from being a quilter, right? I'm sure she secretly likes it. In fact, he told me she requested all the colors for the next quilt he's making, right? So she is supportive of that. But how do we get more men quilting?
Oh, that's the $6,000 question. I would say
I didn't script this question. You didn't get a heads up on this question. Sorry, Paul.
No, I didn't get a heads up for most of your questions, other than Paul doing the interview. I think the men that are quilting, we need to be out there maybe a bit more. For like, not like myself that I am out there. I do quilt. I don't hide it. I do, but there's still a few of us that are maybe still a bit too much. They don't talk about it because they're afraid of the perception. Yeah, it's like when I started quilting at the campground, for example. I would quilt on my deck, and the guys would pass by and look at me. Ha ha, Paul, what are you doing? Sewing yourself another dress? Ha ha ha. Well, that was a good joke. Oh, I never heard that one before. And as they kept on walking, it got to the point that if I was just sitting having a cup of coffee, they'd walk up and sit down. If I was working, they would come to the deck, knock on the deck, although I saw them coming, and ask permission to come up to see what I was working on.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because they saw that what I was doing was not a dress or a shirt. I was creating art. So, like I said, I got a whole new respect, and because I'm out there. I will sew on the deck, and I'm weather permitting and heat permitting. I will sew in my backyard, and I don't care if my backyard neighbors see me. I don't care. But a couple of years ago, I was working at Le Salon in Quebec, their big quilt show, and I was actually working while there was slow, and I had a sewing machine in front of me, And I heard this lady say, no, that belongs to the gentleman. You can't use it. And I turned around, it was a young boy, maybe 4 or 5 years old, and his grandmother. And I just looked at him and there, do you want to use the machine? And he just like, yes. And
Yeah.
the only thing he could do was push the buttons and push the pedal. I did not let him anywhere as close to the needle. Mm-hmm. And he saw all these stitches and he wanted to play with the stitches. So I said, all right, which one? And he'd say, what's that number? 9? He said, yes, 193. So I'm okay, push 193. I put the fabric in, and at one point he's sitting there just looking. I think we need to give children more experiences like that. The fact that they're 4, 5, or 10, or 11, or older. If they seem to have an interest in a sewing machine, let them play.
Yeah.
Let them create just a quilt, something the size behind me, or maybe a bit bigger, just with squares.
I so agree with you.
For little girls, and that goes for little girls too, not just boys, but for children. Anybody. Let them play on these machines. Yes, they're expensive, but help them. Yeah.
Help them. Let them do the things that are safe. And so, I was an elementary school teacher. In the last 2 years that I worked, we had a quilting club. It was operated by volunteer quilters from the Thousand Islands Quilters Guild. So we worked with students 9 years old and up. And, we had an equal number of boys and girls who signed up for the quilting club. And there was one member of the guild, Laura. I will never forget this. I love her dearly. She is a retired teacher as well. She was one of the team helping a class to make a quilt for Ronald McDonald House. The guild had offered us leftover blocks from the, can I get this right? Sesquicentennial, the Canada 150 blocks. They had extras. So they asked, would the kids like to curate the placement of them and learn how to sew it? They did every step of the quilting. So what happened was there was one boy with autism, and he was nervous about trying this new experience. He was 10 years old, and he said, I'll just watch. And so Laura was doing the sewing. He was watching. She was encouraging him. Do you want to touch a button? Do you want to try something? His fear was that the needle would hurt him, right? That he would get his fingers in the sewing machine needle. So that's exactly what they did. She's like, you press the pedal, I'll do this part, right? Well, by the end of it, he wanted so much to sew. And you know what it was that encouraged him was, Laura tried not to laugh, but he's like, may I take your sewing machine apart and see how it works? Okay. He was fascinated by this whole process of how he was able to create something with the machine. And after that, every week, is it my turn again today? He wanted to go and sew. So we never know what we'll reach when we expose children to new opportunities. So, if you have young children or grandchildren, absolutely, boys or girls, doesn't matter. Get them involved in your hobbies.
Exactly. Even there was an opportunity a couple of years ago with, I don't know if you know her, Lisa Compton. She's quite involved with Quilts of Valor. And she got the local junior teenagers hockey team to go to Textile Traditions in Elmont. Kelly gave out the use of her classroom, and she also and they made blocks all day. The hockey team, men's hockey, made blocks. I'm not saying now they're not all quilters, but it's opening a door. Some may like it, some may not. It's just, let's seize the opportunities. And I think I saw somebody leaving a comment, Sandra. Some of my hockey boys have help with quilts, and a few have asked to learn how to use sewing machines. See, so even Sandra has had similar experiences, which is great. So,
yeah, it is great. There's been a lot of some comments mentioning too, like, about teaching your children and including all of them. And so I really appreciate, like, as you said, that hopefully male quilters will share more about what they do and know that they are accepted by all quilters. Those of you, I hope you will share this video with your friends after we save it to our page for replay, because you know, the point of bringing Paul on here today is I'd like everybody to know that if you're interested in a hobby or doing something that's not typically associated with your walk of life, whatever that may be, your social group, your gender, anything, by sharing these kinds of things, somebody who's not a quilter might watch this and might be thinking, yeah, I've been wanting to do this. It might be a man watching, it might be a young child, whoever. I've been wanting to do this, and it is for all people. So I really hope that this conversation will help. We could have had it in every month, but I really felt like I wanted to talk to you about this in Pride Month and maybe tackle a couple of, you know, different types of comments that we've heard in our experiences. So I really, really thank you, Paul, for coming on. Are there any final things you'd like to share with our fans here?
Just, well, well, thank you for doing this needed little interview topic. I just want to say it's too bad that this could not have happened yesterday, because yesterday was actually official Pride Day. It's when it's all started 42 years ago. 42, 52? It's 1969, so whatever that is, 30, 40, 50, 52 years ago, I guess. So it's a great coincidence that we're doing it basically almost at the same time as the whole movement started. So thank you. And ladies and gentlemen out there, let's keep quilting and let's get more men doing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Paul, for joining us today.
Pleasure. Thank you.
And all the crew who've been watching this interview, thank you so much. And as we said, please share so that we can get this conversation out there to others. And stay safe, stay hopeful, and do something that makes you smile. And thank you so much. Bye, Paul. Bye, everyone. Bye, everyone. Oh, we'll see you back on Friday because tomorrow I'm going to take the day to have time at home with family, so we won't have a video, but we'll see you back on Friday. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.